morning, everybody. Welcome this morning. As you get settled, I just want to introduce myself and set an intention for this time that I have with you this morning. My name is Sarah. I go by the Handpanist on social media, particularly Instagram, but regardless. As I play for you this morning, I invite you to just take this time to ground yourself, to feel and check in with your body, your feet, how they are on the floor, and your body on the chair. Take a moment to get comfortable, to take a breath, to be present in this space and in this time that we have together, and enjoy.
Thank you, Sarah. What an absolute honor to set the tone and open the event today. Sarah is a New York City public school teacher and a classically trained pianist, flautist, self-taught guitarist, bassist, ukulele player, and something in between percussionist. If you want to learn more about Sarah and possibly take private lessons with her, we'll be linking to her website in the follow-up email. And if you're a musician or you know a musician who would be amazing for opening up the events, email us at hello@creativemornings.com. Good morning. My name is Tina Roth-Eisenberg. I'm the founder of Creative Mornings and your New York City chapter host. And today I'm welcoming you from the ancestral land of the Lenape people and recognize the significance of Brooklyn and New York City for Lenape people past and present. I want to also extend a really warm welcome to the 200 plus people tuning in on Livestream from all around the world. We're so happy you're joining us digitally. And I challenge you to keep Livestream Kyle engaged and busy in the chat. He himself is tuning in from Toronto today, so yeah, just keep Kyle busy. And Kyle, we miss you. We're so happy to be back at NewLab. The NewLab team makes it so easy for us to host events. I sleep really well the night before a NewLab event. And I want to thank Maria for making it just such a delight to host the events here. And I want to give Urosh a shout out at AV. Like the minute I knew he's here, we knew we were going to be in good hands. And we lovingly call NewLab our Porsche venue. Actually, Maria and I had a moment, we plugged in the laptop this morning and we just hit play and it was all done. And we just giggled. It was like, this is so great. And in case you're wondering what the venue actually is this your first time? Raise your hand if this is your first time at NewLab. Oh, so many of you, okay. So NewLab opened in the Brooklyn Navy Yard here in 2016 and transformed what was once a naval machine shop, actually 84,000 square foot machine shop, into a center for applied innovation. And it's now the home for over 200 companies, more than 900 entrepreneurs and domain experts, and they're all working together to apply transformative technologies to the world's most pressing challenges. And fun fact, NewLab is opening a new flagship in Detroit soon. And there will be more info in the follow-up email, and it's just Maria and Haley and Urosh and everybody, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Did you enjoy breakfast and coffee? Yeah? Shall we thank the local partners that make it possible? Yes. All right, so first off, I want to thank our longstanding partner, Harvest. They're just like us, a New York City-based company, and they made actually time tracking pretty darn sexy. I remember when I worked as a designer, I hated time tracking, and I really wish Harvest would have been around back then. So if you're someone who has to do time tracking, check them out. And by show of hands, who is the most productive in the morning of you? Well, clearly me. Who's the most productive later in the day? Ooh, I applaud all of you showing up, by the way, the later in the day people. But there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to productivity. So we're going to share a really interesting article by Harvest in the follow-up email in which they discuss how to calculate your sort of biological prime time for productivity in the workday. It's pretty interesting, so check it out. And then I want to thank MPB, our other local partner. They make it super easy to sell or buy used photography or video equipment. And if you have some old lenses sitting around, I do, in your drawers and you're not using them, set them free, make some extra cash. I'm actually curious to see who here has listed some gear on MPB. Oh, there's a few arms up. Well, thank you, MPB. We love you. All right. Every month, we read our manifesto to sort of remind ourselves of our values and why we do what we do at Creative Mornings. And every month, we have a community member come up on stage and do so. And today, we have Kamau from Jersey City, who crossed 2 rivers to be with us here today. And I always love, by the way, I am always, when you sign up at Creative Mornings, I will dig into the profiles with so much gusto. And I love, like, Kamau's profile was really filled out. And on his profile, on the question what his superpower was, he says, it's to uplift the creative spirit. That's my kind of people. Also, Kamau is the founder of the Alien School, aiming to change the way you experience creativity. As he explains on his website, Alien School is here to bring Clarity to Creativity is here to love creation in all its forms. He is my people. So come out. The stage is yours.
Thank you. I rallied against this statement all of my career as a creative leader because people would come into the room to say everyone's a creative. I'm like, wait a minute. But this is such a powerful statement, and it's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We're here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, and hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome, and love what you create.
Kamar was warning me. He says, I'm going to start riffing. He was really holding himself back. Some of you might not know, but Creative Mornings actually exists all around the world, not just here in New York City. We have 228 chapters in 67 countries. So each dot on this map represents a Creative Mornings chapter run by local volunteers that generously and warmly gather their local creative communities every month. I am starting to think, and I'm starting to get a bit more daring, actually calling us Church for Creativity. We're literally a global church for creativity, and a bona fide friendship engine. So many people keep telling me they move to a city, they don't know anyone, they go to Creative Mornings, and they make friends and they find their people, and it just makes me so happy. And when people ask what our business model is, I always say with a chuckle, radical generosity. And Creative Mornings wouldn't be as expansive as it is today if it wasn't for the radically generous support of one particular company, and that is MailChimp. They've been our official partner for 14 years straight, and anyone who works in partnerships probably shudders at this and goes is baffled, and I'm baffled at it too. And they're just incredible, and they really get the creative type, and and the underdogs, and they have a really cool part of their website. If you don't know about it, MailChimp Presents, where they share incredibly interesting content and podcasts for the creative types. And they just most recently collaborated with It's Nice That, the London-based agency, and they launched All in a Day's Work. It's an animated series of comedy shorts revealing the ups and downs and the sometimes painful truths of a life as an entrepreneur and a small business owner. But you don't need to be a business owner to understand the shame that comes with creative block, or being bored with your craft. We've all been there, or the other humiliation of getting a less than perfect rating. So we'll share the 12 episodes in the follow-up email. So thank you, MailChimp. All right, now my favorite thing, stand up if. I'm going to project sentences to the screen, and if it applies to you, please stand up. If you can stand up, just raise your arm. Stand up if this is your first Creative Mornings. So many of you. If you come up to me afterwards, I'll hug you so you know how welcome you are. Stand up if you've been to another chapter or you are visiting from another chapter. Wow. All right, so who's visiting from another chapter? Just shout the cities. Zurich. Another chapter? Well, Yvonne, you'll win. She's also my house guest right now. Stand up if you started your day snuggling a pet. Aww. Stand up if you wish you would have started snuggling with a pet. Aww. Go to an adoption agency. Just do it. It's the best thing ever. Stand up if you hugged someone today. Stand up if you're relieved that Valentine's Day is behind us. Stand up if you love mending clothes and do it often. Well, Kate, yes, clearly. Stand up if you're looking for help mending an item of clothing. Okay, so that, pay attention to those who were mending, those who are standing, because now I'm asking, stand up if you're here to make friends, because this is like the Venn diagram overlap, people. Okay, you just need to find each other. All right. This month's theme is touch. It was chosen by our Lisbon chapter and beautifully illustrated by Emma Lopez. I am so excited to introduce Kate Sekules. I had the pleasure to meet Kate a few months ago at a dinner at my house, at my friend Jenny's house, who's actually here in the first row. I jokingly now call Jenny and her husband my speaker bureau, because at that dinner I met Kate, who's speaking today, and I met Dario, who spoke in December. So please keep inviting me to your dinners, Jenny. I was completely enamored with Kate's mission to spread the mend, as she calls it. She's a writer, historian, teacher, and a lifelong practitioner. She's the author of Mend, the book, a refashioning manual and manifesto published by Penguin in 2020. She's also a professor of fashion history at Pratt Institute and the Mending author for the forthcoming Bloomsbury Encyclopedia of World Textiles. And this is so cool, she's currently completing her PhD dissertation, A History and Theory of Mending at Bard Graduate Center, New York, after which she will have actually earned the title Dr. Mend. Give a rockstar applause for Kate.
Oh my goodness. Oh, where do I put my tea? Thank you, Tina, and thank you all for being here. This is so exciting. I love your mission. I love everything about this. And so, yes, some of this will be a little repeat, because I'm just going to tell you who I am. I'm Kate Sekules, and I am obsessed with mending. I'm a writer, collector, teacher, historian, researcher, and evangelist of mending. And I'm also Dr. Mend, as you just heard, holding surgeries for your injured clothes and dispensing mendication. But what I really want to do today is recruit you. Gently. So the theme is touch, and mending is all about touch. But first, I want to know about you. So, we did a little bit of this, a little repeat again, but please stand up if you can, if you wear clothes. Yeah, I'm really relieved. Okay, now sit down if you have never had a single hole, rent, rip, snag, stain, rupture in any clothes. Yep, predicted that. Now sit down if your entire wardrobe is currently intact or you have personally mended all the damage in your wardrobe. Ooh, wait a minute. Okay. That's really impressive. Okay, I mean, either you're lucky or you shop a lot, or you should be doing this. And now, sit if you have ever mended any clothes. I already know this. Quite a few. Oh, yes. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so this is good, because you are still standing. You have holes, but don't know how. Oh, you too. One, okay, now you're embarrassed. You don't know how to fix them. I was going to say sit down now if you'd like to mend, but I guess you got sick of standing, so never mind. Anyway, I promise you that in 20 minutes you will be raring to get in touch with your wardrobe in a whole new way. So, anyway, these artworks are showing you that throughout time and space, humans, mostly female humans, it must be admitted, have mended. It was not pleasant to continually have to amend everything, but textile, and we forget this, was the most valuable resource most people owned, worth more than housing, more than jewels, because clothes were all laboriously handmade, from fiber to frock to underwear. These knickers, as I call them from England, were mended in the Great Depression by Jessie Whitley, sharecropper of Lamar County, Alabama, and a civilian conservation corps officer bought them straight off her clothesline, which is why we have them. And archaeologist Beatrix Nuts excavated these men's drawers dating to 1460 from under the floor in Nengberg Castle, Austria. They'd had 3 mending campaigns, at least 2 owners, and remained in service for over 40 years. So, ordinary clothes like these only survive accidentally. In private collections, like this 19th century mill worker's coat, or stuffed up a chimney, like these mid-18th century agricultural workers' pants. Excuse me. Water. Because clothes are vulnerable. They rot. Well, they used to. And as most of you know, they tear, they rip, they get eaten, moths go way back. And so there's more done than sleeve coat or the nothing but patched trouser are way more rare than the court dress and couture that we see in museums. But I find this heartbreakingly fastidious mending far more fascinating than fashion perfection. It's so touching because these were our clothes. You and I, let's face it, we were probably not Tutankhamun and Catherine the Great, but some lowly plowman or washerwoman, and our clothes were so precious that we wore them literally to bits. And we mended a lot throughout history. How much history? Well, how many generations of people handmade and mended everything they wore? Anyone want to shout out a number? Generations, so 30-ish years. Okay, I'll just tell you. At least 100, thank you. It's more. It's about 3,500. These are based on data. I can tell you later if you're curious exactly where that comes from. Anyway, how many generations bought and replaced everything they wore, or rather, I should say, how long have we been buying and replacing everything we wear? A generous 5 generations, so. But I'm far from alone in my obsession because mend love, is spreading, and here you all are to prove it. Bara, like this donja, a giant family sleeping bag of salvaged hemp scraps, was a textile, you probably know this, born of extreme poverty in the rural north of Meiji-era Japan that nearly died out from shame. People just wanted to throw it away and forget it, but it's now collected and highly prized so that this not museum-worthy fragment is all I can afford to own. But yes, extreme accidentally visible mending is affecting, but let's not romanticize it. Let's not fetishize this. The mended look was to be avoided. But for all those generations, we were all in it together, and I mean all of us, including monarchs. So this 3,350-year-old kerchief speaks of value in a culture where linen for many centuries was the principal currency kept in service way beyond the grave. And talking of Tutankhamun, who we are not, this is part of the embalming refuse from his mummification. And saints, this is the cowl, one of 3 extant cowls of St. Francis of Assisi, who patched it in the 12th century with his own hands, and part of his message was that mending brought a soul closer to God. And then we have artists, so this not-so-expert stitcher could easily have replaced her stockings, yet she darned its Frida. And even bankers mended. So these, Stephen Girard, these are his stockings, and he was the richest man in America on his death in 1830. And yet he preserved his silk stockings his whole life long. So talking of stockings, let's have a little look at how they caused a 19th century mending crisis, which kind of echoes ours in some ways. Then our current sick scenario of the fashion industrial complex kicked in earlier than you might think, and it all could be said to revolve around this ubiquitous undergarment without which you were not dressed, certainly women, also men, also children. Stockings were compulsory for everyone, especially women, at every waking hour. And until the 1870s or so, a typical stocking wardrobe would look something like this, like a handful of dreary, colorless pairs, hand knit, possibly by you, in cotton, Nile, silk, or wool. And stockings remain flimsy. You would have to darn them a lot, relentlessly, repeatedly, and you might have been terrible at it, but you still darned. Every woman darned. And it was such tedious drudgery that it had to be romanticized and idealized, like mending by the hearth and grandma's lap. And this sort of propaganda persisted well past the point when no self-respecting girl even owned a darning needle anymore, because fashion. So by the 1890s, that's 20 years, you fashionable New Yorkers, you would have had a stocking wardrobe, something like this. Dozens, even hundreds, it was normal to have even hundreds of pairs with stripes, embroidered clocks, laced insets, trompe-l'oeil, fringe, spangled, beaded checks, plaids, changeable silks. Every dress had its matching hosiery, because you did not darn now. You forgot how. You replaced. And you could do this on your stenographer's salary, now you were a working woman, because discounting was invented, and prices dropped and dropped and dropped. Sound familiar? So just as we are aware today of garment workers' plight, so our Gilded Age sisters knew about the destitute sewing women who enabled these discounts. Everyone could recite the lurid bits of Thomas Hood's poem, The Song of the Shirt. Stitch, stitch, stitch in poverty, hunger, and dirt, sewing at once with a double thread, a shroud as well as a shirt. It was a very popular subject for painters. These are all actually titled The Song of the Shirt. You know, the desperate poverty was very attractive. Sewing women lived and worked right here. Some 35% of female New Yorkers were slaving with the needle for middlemen called sweaters, yep, that's where we get the term, in slum tenements, barely surviving. And photographers like Jacob Riis exposed the shocking conditions of 5 Points and Elizabeth Street, and it became a cause célèbre among benevolent ladies and reformers. But little changed. 25 years later, Lewis Hine documented child laborers in the stocking factories of the southern USA. And exactly a century after that, the picture looks very similar, only we don't live next door to our sewing women, we outsource the misery here to Vietnam, and our stockings are blue jeans. But look, you know about this. Hating ourselves for loving fashion hasn't really shifted the needle. You are not the problem. You know about the fashion industrial complex, and you do not buy $2 thongs from Shein or 70-cent vintage court-style 3D floral socks, whatever those are, from Temu. If you saw the Super Bowl, which I didn't, but I hear they were advertising, so they're the next up. Anyway, you know about all this, and you know about the second-hand churn. And you know how thrifting pickings are going really thin? Marie Kondo sparked more than joy. She sparked a tsunami of used clothes dumping. That shifted the needle. Because decluttering just means recluttering someplace else. So yes, when clothes were valuable, we mended. So shall we mend again? What if we acted as if our clothes were still supremely valuable? Only we shouldn't hide our men's as they did back then. Rather delightfully, the place where I now teach fashion history, Pratt Institute, was the leader in repair pedagogy. And by 1900, certainly in this city and elsewhere too, mending was taught in all schools. It hadn't been. And for good or ill, stocking darning was back and stayed so until at least the mid-century advent of nylons. But we don't wear nylons or stockings, which is just as well because we are way too busy to spend 2 hours or more zipping up a run. Mending, high irony alert, is a luxury these days because of the time it takes. But, and here's my point, it's a luxury worth striving for. So, let's mend with great and obviousness and glee. To show your mend is to wear your heart on your sleeve. Look how I'm keeping this dear old thing alive. Visible mending is a bit trendy now. Maybe that's what brought you here today. But mending is no trend. It's a way of seeing. Mending is co-design. I co-design with time, with my own style, with agents of change. Hello, moths. Hello, tiny country mouse mummy who eviscerated my softest cashmere jumper. But most of all, when I co-design a mend, I am in touch with the original garment maker, because sewing cannot be automated. There are no car robots in your wardrobe. There are several people, at least, per garment. Clothes are handwork like this, or horrifically like this. Not Manhattan sewing women, but sewing children of Bangladesh and elsewhere, but wherever they are, sewing machines are operated by human touch. So when I get hold of a plain, stained, oversized linen shirt from H&M, I want to honor the anonymous labor by adding my own labor. Visible mending, co-design, sees no firm distinction between making and mending. And especially when textile objects, as we saw, breakdown is inevitable, but death is not. There are so many ways to give them new life. And so let's look at some. Perhaps it's perverse of me not to start with the best-known men types, patching and darning, the celebrities of mending, but I'm fond of this technique I call punk smocking. Here's another one. It takes care of stains, modest holes and tears, and is a smallening method. I'm wearing one. So now I'm going to hit you with a bunch of mends and methods, or in other words, mendspiration. This will go a little fast. So here's darning. This is the exact same technique that swallowed millennia of women's time, and since I lack compulsory stockings, and I love it. And if you don't do it already, so will you. Everyone loves darning. I think that's fair to say. I know it is, actually. Darning is basically attaching a tiny little weave structure over your hole. And you can do it small and fine. You can do it fat and lazy. You can do it in shapes. You can do it Swiss, Tina. Swiss darning is also called duplicate stitch, and it strengthens thin places. You can do it Scotch, also known as corded buttonhole stitch, and it's a lace-making technique as well. So I darned these leggings, or 21st century stockings, and then the other knee went, and I was pleased. I love finding a fresh hole, because darning is calming, and I can recommend it. There will be more puns, I'm not apologizing. As the greatest method of, biggest pun, best pun, menditation. And so back to touch, mending, this intimate haptic interaction with your clothes, your second skin, changes them, but it also changes you. And what it means has changed radically. Until very recently, patching, the commonest of all mends, was the notorious mark of poverty, the cause of centuries of shame. But yesterday on the runway, there was, actually it might have been Wednesday, but anyway, there was fresh evidence that the stigma, at least in cultures that believe in New York Fashion Week, is history. Colina Strada here and Tom Brown here prove that patching is fashion. Reuse is hot, scrappy piecing at Elena Velez is sexy, and the fashion genius of mighty Marc Jacobs has surely been touched by Bora. Patching is a humble art form, a versatile technology. When this linen knit disintegrated, I saw opportunity. A full body underpatch I call an endoskeleton, many hours of extempore stitch later, and the rag is renewed, an unrepeatable garment that I love afresh. And talking of love, isn't the oldest, tattiest t-shirt always the best? Like, hands up. Who's got one? Yeah. Do you despair of it? Does it fall into bits? Do not despair. They're the most worth the investment. And this very vintage item was a labor of love for my dear friend Ambrosia, who got it secondhand years ago, wore it to shreds, and is now pleased. Joy sparked. Some more patch-adjacent interventions, a celebratory embellishment. Selfie patch. Oh, no, here it is. I'm wearing it. See, it's good for attachment issues for kids and parents. This is the highly useful porthole technique where you outline the hole instead of filling it, so you keep the hole. And the related, I call it greasy tea for obvious reasons, decorative commemoration of my sloppy eating habits. So useful, so fun. But mending is the opposite of touch screen. It's a fully engaged mind, heart, hand meld. It is the opposite of hate. It is impossible to mend spitefully. Mending, try it. Mending is generative. It's a powerful thought form, a mode of being in the world, and a way to get back in touch with what matters. These are both statements, but this on the left is political. Left? Yeah, I'm not sure. The dress, and it's profoundly human. Kimberly Crenshaw founded Say Her Name in support of Black women victimized by racist police violence. And she said, I ask you to bear witness on behalf of all the Black women who are not yet on our tongues. And so that's why I mend this dress by sewing their names and their own words. And it seems to touch people. Okay, one more story, one more sip. And then I'll end with a few resources for your new mending addiction. So this is my friend Sophie with a derelict farmhouse she accidentally owned, long story. Having learnt that the farmer and his wife raised 12 children there in the early 20th century, she, who's a brilliant writer-illustrator, you might have heard of her, wrote this book about them. But long before that, Sophie let me go in and upstairs, and they'd abandoned the house. Around 1945, we had newspaper evidence. It was clear when it was, and all these clothes are from the 40s and earlier, and they were just left like that. So I picked that dress, circled there, and I applique patched the rips having, wet cleaned it, as we call it in the trade. These fabrics I also found in the pile, so I used them to applique it, and then stitched over the indelibly soiled collar. And it's an act of care and remembrance, but also fashion. So, okay, this has been a quick tour around my mend world, but everyone who mends has their own mend world. And here's a little tiny menspirational taste of some of my mend friends' wonderful works. Instagram, I'll go there in a sec, but co-design is personal. It's like handwriting, not that anyone does that, but anyway, nobody else can mend like you. Instagram is still our town hall, and it's grown since 2015. What was that, 1,300 and something posts, but not too much. It's still a little intimate, still friendly. And in that spirit, I would like to personally invite you to my annual March party called Mend March, creatively, where we mend to these stupid prompts. You can ask me more. It's super fun, ridiculously. And also to Dr. Men's Next Surgery, which is the first of a meditation series on Creative Mornings, fabulous field trips. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Alexa. If you don't know them, they're really good. And I've got a couple of useful websites, visiblemending.com here. It's okay, but in development, I've got the much more exciting visiblemending.org, which is an is, it exists, it's there. Actually, I'm looking for collaborations, by the way, and anyway. VisibleMending.org is an interactive world map of mending, menders, men's, and groups, and it features also a directory of services because people are now making a living at mending, including alumni of Custom Collaborative, the incredible program that trains and mentors low and low-income and immigrant women for careers in sustainable fashion, not just fashion. And in fact, this is my last year. This is cohort 9, and I teach the mending. And tonight, cohort 10 graduates. I'm going to the celebration. Look them up. Anyway, mending circles in general are the most ancient of bonding mechanisms, and you will find one near you. These are a couple of mine, but they're popping up like mushrooms. They're everywhere, especially here in New York and Brooklyn. So one of mine was on Japan National News in December, a 10-minute primetime report on visible mending. And to Japan, I thought they already knew, but anyway. There are tons of books, but obviously you should get mine. I embroidered the cover, including the penguin. And so here we are. We've covered these 10 reasons to mend, but there are 10 billion more, as many as there are clothes. And I love clothes. I have literally thousands. I mean, they're all old, true, but still. And I wonder, what if it's in our nature to want more clothes, to love the fashion? What if it's not taught to us by corporate greed, after all? Because we've grown used to fearing and despising and fighting fashion, but what if we just mend it, have fun with it? A garment is supremely interactive. You inhabit it, you're in intimate body language, and your touch eventually breaks it, but this is an opportunity. So fondle your cashmere, darn it. And I just want to know, and please tell me, keep in touch, where will your mend world take you? Thank you.
We have some time for Q&A. Who wants to ask Dr. Mend a question?
Yeah, I haven't actually earned that officially yet.
No, we just got to keep saying it. It's so good.
But I took it anyway.
Raise your arm if you have a question for Kate. There we go.
I'm going to take your photo.
Hi, good morning. My name is Erwin, and I'm new to mending and the idea of mending. I mean, I seen my parents mend a lot of my clothes when I was younger. I just wanted to get your perspective on why we should mend. And, living in a first world country is not very common. And maybe, we don't have the necessity to mend as maybe our parents who are immigrants or the generations above us. So I just want to get an idea of what your perspective is on why and for what reason we should keep the tradition of mending going.
Yeah, thanks, Owen. I mean, that's the fundamental question, really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have the space and time to go into this today, but I mean, it's a, oh, yeah.
It's right there.
Answer. But there is, I mean, of course, most of the world needs to mend still. I mean, it's not, clothing insecurity is real, and we have the privilege, the immense privilege of having choices here, and we have too much stuff, and we discard it, and it goes to countries where it then goes to ruin their own indigenous domestic textile industries. I mean, it's a lot. But we should learn from them, because there are all the mending, I mean, I tried to show you today how creative it can be. And so why else would we who have choices, we're lucky to have choices, why would we bother? Because you're making a statement, that's why visible. I didn't really sort of push the visible part because I feel like you all know that now, because it's known, it's a thing, it's out there. But I'm a little worried that this trend that it has become will end, and then we'll just get bored of mending. The certain look, you've probably seen the Sashko style jeans, and I mean, there are these looks, but there are infinite looks, co-design. So put the time in, take some time out of that. We all have time that we can reassign. I think it's fair to say all, not everyone at all, but a lot of us can, don't try and finish Netflix. Do some of, or you can do it at the same time, actually. It's really good to Netflix and Dawn. I mean, it works. So you can do it with other things. So you can do it with your podcasts for sure. You can't do it while you're driving, but while someone else is driving, it's fine. So anyway, your question was why? And the why is, when we do this, a lot of us, the more of us that do this and the more it spreads, the more, my thing is always, don't hit people over the head with, God, fashion's terrible. Fast fashion, it's ruining the earth. Yeah, it is. But no one wants to hear that. It just makes you want to run to H&M sale. It really is it's a thing. Or to, the second-hand flipping, that's a whole other thing. But what about we just do things that are really beautiful, exciting, unique, and creative and fun, and put them over here so that people see this and they want to do that. They want part of it. They want in. And look at Marc Jacobs and Tom Brown. I mean, these are literally this week, Fashion Week at New York Fashion Week. They're all showing, and they've been doing it they've been doing it for decades, and that's another thing, but I researched this and I can prove it, but it's fashion. Fashion has appropriated this look, so let's take fashion and make it ours again, because it's really broken. It's really broken, and it is not fun. I can't go into those stores, those, the ones. I just can't. It makes me sad. I feel, maybe I'm being ridiculous or oversensitive, but I swear I can feel that misery. I mean, it just feels sad. And it's because people's lives are ruined. The people that make our clothes, they are not well treated. And those poor kids in Bangladesh you saw, that's from 2017. It's a whole series a photographer did, but it's real, it's happening. And the giant factories, that doesn't do much good for the earth either. Sorry, that's probably too much answer, but yeah. Do you need to
Hey.
take, oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
My name is ZC. I just want to add to that answer and then ask a question. Just based on what you were saying before, which I really appreciated, Mending kind of gives you a respect for what you already own, and it helps in your decision making when you're purchasing, that you buy things that have value, and you feel and you have value in what you possess, and it's less of that disposable mindset, which can be really detrimental, which Kate, I don't want to misquote you, but I feel like you were kind of adding that point, and it says respect right up there, which I really appreciated. My question for you is, what is your take on secondhand fashion? You mentioned it a few times, and not positively, it seems, so I'm really curious to hear.
Zizi, you said, right? Yeah. Great name. Yeah, no, it's really complicated now. So I had a website, it's still there, you can see it. It's a sort of ghost of itself called Refashioner, which is trading the stuff from the back of your closet, the good stuff you didn't want to get rid of but you weren't wearing. This is so familiar now, but this was over 10 years ago it launched, and it was like one of the first. And I believe in that. I so believe in that. I've done nothing but secondhand my whole life. No exaggeration. And I believe in that. I believe in passing it on. But what happened recently, and there are lots of data on this, and it's all happening, accelerating enormously by things like Refashioner, but Refashioner done by people who are good at business. And that is getting huge. You know them all. I don't need to name, Real and Poshmark and all the churn happens now because the kids, and no offense to kids, bless you, I think it's brilliant to make a sort of curated selection and to pass it on and to do it with thought and with care. But what's not so good is when the second-hand market that exists enables more buying from the primary market, and the sort of churning of the bad stuff. So the thing is, I do thrift and I vintage and I do everything in between, and I find that I'm not just saying, I know how it is with thrifting. It's harder now because the stuff you get in thrift is, we haven't made any new vintage for 25 years. And so secondhand is hugely important in this whole ecosystem, and I mean ecosystem. It's not circular. That's absolutely not really happening. That's a big old, not lie, but propaganda story. But secondhand is built into everything that we should do, and we should certainly keep it circulating. I love swaps, and especially. I know a really good one. And there's other things like that. The rental market is interesting. But anyway, the secondhand is essential. And if you don't want to mend your thing, I mean, give me it. I'll mend it. I love it. It's fun. I run out. I don't really. But I could run out of mend pile. Mend March, anyway, it's connected. That's the short. I could have done that in one word. Yeah.
I have a question from Livestream.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, there's 3, and now they sent me 3, and now I have to choose one. Anyway, I'm going to choose Arbo. Arbo on the live stream asks, have you explored cross-cultural mending methods? For example, Japanese kintsugi, particularly as related to healing trauma. This work has applications in many areas of collective healing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm devoted to cross-cultural mending methods. I mean, we learn from other cultures much more than we learn from our own, really, our own sort of rather rigid pedagogy that I mentioned there. There's a kintsugi floor out there. Did you all notice? Did you look down? It's beautiful. Yeah, so kintsugi is not so much for clothes, but there is actually in the Netherlands, there's an operation, the Golden Joinery, it's called. Look them up. They've made a board game of kintsugi for clothes. It's beautiful. Anyway, yes, Bora is very, very inspiring to a lot of people, but Bora we cannot do. We shouldn't be careful of cultural appropriation, and this is always a thing when you do use someone else's method, acknowledge it, learn from it, give back. You know, there's all sorts. I mean, from the DRC textiles, well, we now call it that. The name's flown out of my head, it will come back, but Kantha, the India technique, Bora, and I mentioned the jeans thing that everyone is doing. I mean, everyone is mad for the Bora, and thank you, Sashko. I mean, I use this word many times a day. Anyway, Sashko, which is a pattern stitching using little grain of rice, white usually on indigo stitching in patterns, and it's really complicated. And it's really deep, and it goes through and through and through many other cultures. And yeah, we should totally research those and then acknowledge them and bring the world into this. It's a really great question, thank you.
Okay, we have one more question. Who thinks they have the final question? Yeah, there's confidence over there.
Thank you. Hi, Kate. My name is Allie. I wanted to ask, it strikes me that, you know, a visible mend is like a scar. It has a story. Can you speak to, I don't know, the connection that you've made just being in the world, wearing a garment that invites conversation? And what is your favorite vintage store in New York City?
Oh, wow. That one is, I'll go to the scar part first, because that's easier. Yeah, no, I love that. I'm glad you mentioned scars. I don't think I did. And yeah, everything. I mean, we're talking about touch, and we touch, and I, said how our touch erodes our clothes. And the scars I find very beautiful. And so what I do, here's another one that I didn't. Scar is very scar-like, actually. And there are all sorts of ways to mend and emphasize the damage so that you are commemorating your use and your wear. And the scar is very human, isn't it? And we're talking about touch. Touch is, I mean, we've broken the world. Mending is a metaphor. It's so obvious. I never said it today, but I should have started with it. I mean, mending is a big word, I always say. And we're looking to mend more than our clothes. And we're looking by showing the scar, by making the scars obvious. I think I'd say on that website, mending.com, wear your scars out and proud. And that is what it's a badge of honor. It's very much about the scars and healing, attempting to heal the planet, fashion, our own, our private practice, our everyday experience, what we spend our time with and on, and how we interact with the material world. So thank you for that question. The final question, it was indeed appropriate. It was wonderful. And by the way, I should have probably said, @VisibleMend is my Instagram. Please, if you do Instagram, and I have mixed feelings, and there's no doubt that Meta is no comment, but it's really very, very fun. And Mend March is a party. It's absolutely the nearest thing to a party you can do on there. And please join in and, DM me and say you were here and all that stuff. And these are the prompts. No, they're not there. But you'll find them on @VisibleMend. That's all.
Your favorite vintage store?
Oh, my favorite vintage store. Well, I know this is not going to be very exciting, but I just devoted to Beacon's Closet. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm a little concerned because the churn is real there too. It's really gone down. And that is like the final, that's like the canary, not the canary, because the canary dies first. This is, I don't know, the large horse in the coal mine. I don't know. So I want to know yours though, Alan. You can tell me later. Okay. Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite store? You asked it.
Favorite vintage? I think I got this at Beacon's. Yeah. And then I broke it. Or it broke its, I don't know what. Yeah. 10 cents. Oh, Stella Dallas 10-foot single. I love that one too. Really good one. Unearthed vintage on Smith Street. Oh, the new one. The new one, that's really new. No, that's a good one. Unearthed vintage. And actually there is one in Soho on Broadway. It's the Vintage Twin. That's actually pretty good. I love that they're there. They're right in the center of commerce, and they do some remaking stuff, and I love that place actually. It's a good one. Okay.
Okay, who's going to try and mend next time they have a hole in their head, in their coat? There we go, you did it. She's contagious, isn't she? Okay, let's give another round of applause for her. Okay. A few thank yous before I let you go. Creative Mornings wouldn't be possible without the gaggles of volunteers that we have. Big thank you to Cece, Kylie, Kelly, Rachel, Emily, Megan, Leah, Sky, Maria, Alicia, Melanie, Priya, Samantha, Fanny, Connie, who has been documenting our events for years on end. Connie, can we give a round of applause for Connie? And then look at this really handsome live stream team. Matthew, Theon, Kyle, and Kevin. I hope you live stream people have been keeping Kyle busy on the chat. And then I'm so excited to introduce next month's speaker. Vanessa Kelly is going to speak on March 24th. She's actually sitting right here in the front at the National Arts Club. And fun fact, the reason why this happened is because if you've been at the December event, I gave out two gifts. One of them was a deck of cards. And you got the deck of cards, right? And during stand-up, I asked, stand up if your year was hard. And then I said, stand up if your year was really hard. And the really hard question, the deck of cards went to Vanessa. And then her husband sent the most heartfelt email saying, I want to give you context, why? And that story you will hear. She will probably share that story. But it's just, well, sometimes life is just really interesting how speakers find you, or friends find you, or new jobs find you, and let this just be a reminder you never know. And I want to leave you just with a quote. Today's is by Mariam Hasna. Think of your energy as currency. When you focus less energy on the things you are against, you have more to spend on creating what you want. Thank you for coming. See you next month, and thank you again, New Lab.